Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. Of course, I am in the midst of my Final Destination reviews, and this is a review for Final Destination 3, my personal favorite. I loved this. It held up just as well as I remembered from back in the day, aside from a few nitpicks here and there. Nothing too severe. This came out in 2006, 3 whole years after the previous Final Destination 2, and this time around, James Wong, who helped create the series, helped direct it, or directed it, whatever, in the first movie, and he also co-wrote that film and this movie with Glenn Morgan, who comes back to write this. Now, I also own it in this other pack here, too, that I've been showing you all. But the cool thing about this 2-disc Thrill Edition, it took me, number one, forever to find this thing in my collection of movies. I still don't have all my shelves up, because I'm waiting for my father-in-law to finish building them and getting them all stained. I almost said tainted, but I meant stained. It's the same concept, but you know what I mean. It took me forever to get through a couple of boxes over here to look for this thing. Finally found it, super thrilled I did, because I did try out what this feature on this DVD has of basically getting choices as you watch the movie. I watched it all the way through, the regular version, the theatrical cut, and then I did the Choose Their Fate addition to this on this 2-disc set here. By the way, this is a great DVD release, from the box DVD itself being very tough and strong and not breakable that easily, all the way to 2 discs, all these awesome features. It's great. But yeah, the Choose Their Fate feature, basically throughout the film as I watched it kind of a second time, you skip to certain checkpoints in the movie, you get to make a choice that may or may not save these people. And let me spoil it for you. The reason they never did this again is because it's really not that great. That feature kind of sucks. It's usually just bonus deleted scenes that they added in. Some of them I'm convinced were shot post this movie's release in theaters. I'm convinced of that. No one will ever be able to convince me otherwise after what I saw in here on some of these scenes and being older now. No. Anyway, this one is the amusement park Final Destination movie, and I have loved that. I like carnivals, I like fairs. I don't really get to go to the ones nearby here in my part of Virginia very often, as in every year. I mean, I usually have a year or so that I miss every other year, something like that. But I love that general atmosphere. There's just so much fun to be had out there, so much danger and thrill. You could get shanked in the side, or you could just have some really delicious turkey legs or cheese pizza or something. And it's all going to cost you a fortune. Final Destination 3 has a group of teens, basically 2 girls and their boyfriends, that are going to this amusement park, and of course they encounter some people at this amusement park. You basically have a couple of girls who are kind of like the really hot, mean girls, but not too mean, you know? They kind of aren't the worst people ever. You have this one sleazy scumbag who carries a camcorder and wears this equivalent of a fedora in 2006, as he wanders around with a trucker female chain necklace thing. You remember that thing the truckers used to put on the back of the trucks back in the day, with the woman laying back and her hair is blowing? She's supposedly naked. I don't know. Maybe she's tanning. Maybe she's chilling on a dark road. I don't know. But he's hanging out wearing something like that and following these 2 really sexy chicks around with a camcorder, because he's a creep. There's them. There's one guy that's kind of like the rock punk guy that probably listens to My Chemical Romance. Matter of fact, he looks like a fucking member of My Chemical Romance. And his really cute redheaded girlfriend. Basically, there's a lot of people like that in this situation at this fair carnival thing. But there's this humongous ride. I forgot what it's called, like Devil's Castle, something like that. That is devil-themed, and the actual voice of the devil that's playing over the speakers is Tony Todd, by the way. I thought that was a really cool thing to have him in here, but not physically in here like he usually is in the previous couple of films. So he does return, that's pretty cool. And basically, this time around, like the typical Final Destination formula, many of you probably know, is that people get into an accident, they all die, but a lot of the time it turns out to be a vision that our main character happens to see. In this case, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, is that her name? I don't know. She sees a vision that all of these people, including herself, are going to die when an accident happens on the actual roller coaster, and it will kill all of them in a very, very horrifically bloody, awesome, and brutal fashion. And it was awesome. I love that. It's my favorite flashback of the series, at least so far, but I'm pretty sure that's why it was my favorite all of the time in the franchise, as I watched these over and over and over again. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen Final Destination 2 and 3, dude. It's like a billion. I love these movies, these two specific ones. But 3 is definitely my favorite. I will stand on that hill till the day I die. I love the series overall, but this is the best one to me. Now, of course, this time, like always, our main character happens to get out of the accident before it happens, and she tries to save her friends. A lot of them, out of concern, happen to get off of the roller coaster this time around, and they survive. But her boyfriend and her best friend, they're actually in the front of the roller coaster because of how seating worked out with a bet, and she didn't want to sit in the front of the roller coaster either to begin with, so they're still on the roller coaster. They die in the actual crash that does happen this time around, and death comes after the kids to hunt them all down for surviving this horrible tragedy. And like I said, that flashback crash thing, the vision, is terrifying. It's awesome, and I think what it was trying to do, and I think what James Wan was trying to do, was make it the equivalent of what a lot of us felt after Final Destination 2 with the log ride. Or not the log ride, but the log truck, and the logs falling out and causing a huge accident on the interstate and doing a lot of things to people. That really affected people so much that people like myself to this day remember what it was like and the trauma of seeing that scene for the first time ever back in the day. And like I said, a lot of us, including in my previous review, have said we'll never drive behind log trucks ever because of that movie. Final Destination 3, I think, was trying to do that with amusement parks, and frankly for me, for a long time when I was a kid and a teenager, it worked. It worked. I still, to this day, I don't care what theme park I go to, if it's a local carnival or whatever, that still scares me. The idea of if something would go horribly wrong, like one of those slingshot rides that I refuse to ride, if something like that happened to have gone wrong, you'd be dead. There's no way you could survive that. No way. At all. Not all your limbs intact and stuff. It's terrifying. I love that about it. It's a blast. It makes the movie way more fun to watch. But the film also has other things. It tries to have that, again, log crash effect with, like tanning beds, for example. I don't use tanning beds, but my mom always did when I was growing up, so she saw this film, and it really bothered her. My grandmother, my grandfather really had them in a place like, this might not be the best, most safe thing ever. But they never stopped. They never stopped. But I never started. Don't do drugs, kids. Final Destination 3 has an interesting cast, oddly enough. Like I said, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who, if the name sounds familiar, like it did to me because I didn't know who the chick was, but I knew that name from somewhere. She is Huntress in Birds of Prey, the recent horrible, probably the worst, in my opinion, DCEU film. Say what you will about BVS, say what you will about Shazam 2, say what you will about David Ayer's Suicide Squad. That's the worst one. I don't care what you say. Birds of Prey is awful. What a waste of Ewan McGregor. But it was a waste, nonetheless. So, this movie, it also stars a guy that I kept thinking throughout the film, because he's like the main male lead, that he looked familiar. And it turns out he is Ryan Merriman from Luck of the Irish, the old Disney film that they just don't play anymore. I think because they're scared of being accused of something, I don't know. But it was a Disney original film, kind of like Phantom of the Megaplex or Cowbells or anything like that, of a kid that finds out he's a leprechaun. And I loved that movie growing up. I watched it all of the time, but he's in here. Then I find out, when I'm looking through the cast a moment ago, there's another guy in here that plays the punk kid that I talked about, and he's from Goosebumps. He's from The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and he played like the cool kid. Styx, I think, was his name. I'm not telling you that off the top of my head. I think that's what IMDb said. I don't know that story well enough in total in memory, even though I watch it every fall now for the last like 5 years, to be able to tell you that. I saw it on IMDb. But he played the cool kid from Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. And he was really good here. Everybody in the cast, in my opinion, whether it be the kind of slutty hot chicks who are holy shit hot, whether it be them, whether it be this one guy who's a weightlifter, who I forgot to mention, by the way, he's okay. You know, he's probably the weakest link in the whole cast to me. But I think the majority of the cast are good. That Frankie Cheeks guy, or whatever his name is, the one with the equivalent of the fedora, carrying the camera around all the time, he gets on my nerves. I think he's supposed to, obviously, by the way the script is written, by the actions that he takes, especially at a funeral scene that is cringe-inducing because of this guy, but in a great cringe way, like a fun way, like a memorable, you'll never forget scumbags like this type of way. But I can't stand that guy. I don't know who I like less, whether it's the deliberate liking less of him or the other guy that's the weightlifter that you're supposed to like. I can't really figure it out, but I had a blast watching this movie over again. Like many people, including myself, have said, Final Destination 2, it kind of got away from practical effects and did a lot of CGI stuff. James Wan here, coming back to the series, kind of is trying to do a little bit of both. There's quite a bit of practical stuff in here, and there's quite a bit of CGI to enhance that, and I don't think that was a bad idea at all. I actually think the way he did it here was probably a masterclass for the most part of how to do that right. It can be a failure, it can be a really bad failure, matter of fact, but Final Destination 3 to me is one of those cases where it is well done, because the kills themselves are not as elaborate and clever, I would say, in the way they're developed and made and executed, for that matter, to execute others in Final Destination 2. It's way better than Final Destination 1 in almost every aspect to me. I don't care if we're even talking about the music, it's better than in Final Destination 1. But the kills themselves are still fun to watch. They're not as super crazy. A lot of the film is focused around our main character looking at pictures that she was taken the night of the accident that was supposed to happen, that she and all these kids managed to escape. And she eventually gets the idea that she needs to kind of focus on things in the background of these photos to get an idea of when these people will die. And I thought that was super clever. That was such a great idea, man, that I think even 4 and 5 had dropped off and did not think about. But, 2 had a little bit of this, but I think the pictures thing utilized for here was a really cool idea, because I am a huge fan of Silent Hill, huge fan of Fatal Frame despite not having played all the games. And I love this idea. I love the idea of having this worry and having to use this it's a very J-horror concept of having photos with like things, like, different images in the background, different lines and whatever. A lot of that may also be from the first Omen movie with the picture that's taken by the photographer in that film that has the spike going through that one priest or whatever. A lot of it could be coming from that, but James Wan being James Wan, it would not impress me at all that if somebody told me that that was a J-horror thing that was more common in Asian horror films or something that he utilized for this movie. I love it, though. That's a great idea. The film, visually, I think looks great. It's not entirely an amusement park, matter of fact. I wish it had gone back to that, but I like how it's kind of like the big amusement park carnival fair thing, and then the end of the film is like a local small fair where you don't have rides and stuff, but you have fireworks and whatever. I really love that. This movie, to me, I've talked about in my review for Final Destination 2, that film reminds me of the summertime. This series overall reminds me of summertime most of the time, but especially 2 and 3. 3 has a very distinct July feel to it, and I love that about the film. It just feels like that time of the year. Even there's scenes where people are just going through a drive-thru at a local fast food restaurant, and just that feeling of doing that from when you were a kid locally here in the summer, and when I did that with my family and stuff, it was just nice. There's something about this film that I'm kind of nostalgic about, and I don't know if it's because it's me who has seen this movie a million times, or if it's like it actually does something charmingly well there. I can't figure it out. I'll never be able to figure that out, but having not seen the film in like 10 or so years, maybe closer to 12 years at this point, it was way before I met my wife, probably 5 years before I met my wife, and we've been together quite a while. So Final Destination 3 is just really special to me, but I will always say this is a little bit less well-made than Final Destination 2, but I think it's immensely more entertaining, and I will defend that until the day I die, despite what the hardcore fans say about 2 being the absolute best. Objectively, yeah, maybe. Personally, no. So when I rank these films out, you'll probably see Final Destination 3 at my number 1 spot, just so you know. But I love this. I thought it was a blast. I also think that, again, the score, the soundtrack even that they use a lot of actual songs in here. One called Roller Coaster of Love, which is a 70s like groove disco song, It's great. I can never, to this day, hear that song and not think of Final Destination 3 in tanning beds. It's wonderful. I love the film for that. It's excellent. I really love this, and I cannot believe people don't adore this movie more. I never hear the hardcore fans talk about this. The only other person I've ever heard who loves this as much as I do is Horror FFA, my friend on YouTube. Definitely check out his channel. I think you'll really enjoy his content. Great, great, great reviewer. But man, I'm so glad that he recently re-ranked these, and this was really high up on the list. I'm not going to spoil that for you, but dude, I was so stoked about that because I love this flick. It deserves more love. It's fantastically well made, despite the CGI stuff that I talk about a lot of the time. I love it. If you've not seen this one, you don't have to see any of the other ones to see it. If this just mildly piques your interest, or if you love carnival horror, or fair horror, or amusement park horror, and haven't seen much of that because they don't really do it, they don't really make that, for the matter of fact, even now in 2024. And you would think we would get more of that these days, but we don't. Aqua Slash was really good too, in case you haven't seen that. But this is something I would recommend to everybody, whether you're a Final Destination fan or not. If you saw the first two and you weren't really that impressed with the series, check this one out. It might be better for you, even though the writing can sometimes be not perfect. Yeah, I love it. I think the ending, by the way, can be a little sloppy, just a little bit, but I like kind of how it was done. Just a little bit. I could see fans not liking the end of this movie that much as the hardcore, canonical how death works logic type of focused fans. But I don't mind it. I actually thought this film had a lot going for it, and I thought it was a blast. But at the end of the day, if I had to rate Final Destination 3 on a 5-star basis, I would easily give this a 5 out of 5 stars for me. Despite it not being perfectly made, I love it, and I typically rate these movies based on entertainment value and what I think of them. Not so much in the quality of the film itself, but what I think of them personally, whether I love them, hate them, whatever. I try to be fair, but some films like this I just think are endlessly rewatchable, especially during this time of the year, and I recommend it highly if you haven't seen it, like I've said a million times. So anyway, that is my review for Final Destination 3. What do you think about the film? What do you think about the series? Do you think 2 is better than this? I'm curious what a lot of you think about it down in the comment section down below. Let me know. Thank you all for watching, guys. Tune in next week to see a review of Final Destination 4, or what's called The Final Destination, because it was supposed to be the final one, which is stupid. These people never learn. Don't do that, and don't call it Final Chapter. Don't ever do that, because it never happens. Anyway, check it out. I can't wait to see you guys there, and eventually at a ranking video, God willing. And thank you all. God bless you again. Catch you later, and goodbye.